the new material. But we have been going through this. We started it out a couple of months ago. And moving into the stages of life. Stages of life. My first part, I lost. I could not. I still can't find it for nothing. But the first thing that we went over, this is friend. But the first stage we went over, anybody remember what it was? Servant. The first stage we went over was servant. And in talking about these stages, I'll touch first on how everything will flow. We will go and look at the relationship that we go through with the Most High from being a servant to our master, and then being a friend to our friend, and that growing into being a son to our father. And then later we will talk about being a bride to our husband, and how these different stages we go through when we understand our role better in and at each stage. We grow in relationship, just like we do with earthly, regular, normal, everyday relationships. You know, you ever work with somebody closely and you feel like you really get close to them, and then you don't work with them no more and you ain't talked to them in years? So that right away lets you know that a big part of being in relationship is being in communication, right? It's being in each other's space. It's being around each other. And so that is such a big part. So when we are with the Most High, when we spend time with Him, we grow in our relationship. Now, have you ever seen or been a part of a relationship that gets to a point and it goes nowhere from there? Like it just is just, that's where it is. And you can see the person every day of the week, and it's just like, hey. And every day it's like, hey. But it's never, you're never pouring out your heart. They're never, coming over to your house for dinner. It's none of that kind of stuff. I think I used for an example before, I got a neighbor. I still don't know his name. To this day, I still have not learned it. Maybe by the next teaching, I would have learned it, But literally, every day, hey, man, what's up? I'm walking the dog, walk by. Every time, if he outside, we talk, communicate. But there's no depth to the relationship, right? And so we have to understand, you can find yourself in that place with the Most High, where it goes no further, because you're not allowing intimate relationship to be cultivated. Intimate relationship is cultivated, and it comes from a place really of vulnerability, being vulnerable to and with someone, and opening up to and with someone. So we're gonna again, I'm gonna touch a little bit. We talked first about master, right? Him being the master, we being the servant. We were bought with a price, right? I'm gonna go through some of the qualities that our master has and that our master expects from us. So number one, we talked about a good master being one who provides, one who protects, one who guides. A good master is fair, compassionate, trustworthy. A good master provides clarity. A good master offers wisdom. And a good master has a vision, right? And so as a servant, a good servant should be obedient. A good servant should be submissive to the master. A good servant should be loyal, honest, dedicated, have a good work ethic, and should be trusting. If the master is trustworthy, but you're not trusting, what difference does it make? Somebody can be the most trustworthy person on the face of the earth, and if you don't put any trust in them, it makes no difference. Makes no difference. So as the master, we talked about a good master servant relationship, Abraham and Eleazar. How it was so much so with Eleazar, Abraham, we only look at it from the fact that he was looking forward to having a child. But I also look at it from this perspective, that Abraham said, the one that I have that will inherit everything of mine is Eleazar. And I want to remind us, Eleazar was not his only servant. But he was that trusting. He was that trustworthy. They were in that good of a relationship that he said, if I die childless, this servant will receive everything as an inheritance. And so it's important to understand that Eleazar, even when he sent him out to go and find a wife for his son once he had YHWH, that was huge. That was enormous. And so we have to understand just how important his role as a servant was and how well he operated in that calling. And so we talked about a bad servant-master relationship with Sarah and Hagar, and how Hagar flaunted in her mistress's face and said, I must be better than you because I got pregnant by your husband. So, as a result, she had a certain way that she approached Sarah, rather. So now let's go to the next one we talked about, which was Rhea, which is friend. And so we talked about how the scripture says, I no longer call you servant, but you are my friends. I no longer call you servant. So there's an elevation in relationship, right? That's what Mashiach said. I no longer call you servant. I call you my friend. And so there's something that has now taken place in the next step with Rhea. Rhea is what friend is. And we talked about how in this understanding, this word, one of the things that it relates to is as a brother, a companion, a fellow, and so it's a very close word, that friend. But there are conditions. We talked about in John 15:13 through 16, where Messiah said, yes, I love you and I will lay my life down for you. But he ends by saying, if you do whatever I tell you, whatever I command you, in verse 14. You are my friends if you do whatever I command you. In other words, don't forget that first aspect of being servant. We're going to the next level, but understand that he is still the master. All right. And so as we continue on, we looked at some of the qualities of a good friend, a friendship. This is mutual. So mutual trust, unselfishness, mutual respect, accountability, and the ability to give and receive sound counsel. Like, these are good things that you would desire in a positive and strong friendship. We also talked about Israel, and talked about how this word itself, even though I think some of my Hebrew letters didn't show up there, but that word Israel is two words coming together, right? The I on the beginning basically says he will. It's a prefix. So the I, that yod, is the first letter. It's not a part of the word. It is helping to define the words that are actually there. The words are two words. It's a compound word of Shra and El. Shra being like Sarah. That is the root of Sarah. And that would be a shin and a resh, but yeah, that's not showing up there. But what you have is to prevail or to conquer with. And so he will prevail or conquer with. And then the last part, El, is Sra El. The El part is Yah, El, God. All right? So it's saying he will. So Sra, conquer with, rule with, El. Okay? Israel. And so this is that companionship, the with, together with El. Together with El. Conquer and prevail with El. So, and let's see. As we looked at some of the good relationships there. We looked at King Jehoshaphat acknowledging Abraham as Yahweh's friend forever. We looked at Yahweh who says, I have chosen Avram. Yahweh chose Avram from his heart. And he said because he's trustworthy. And he made a commitment with him. And he also recognized that he would teach his children. We talked about the covenant between Jonathan and David as a friendship to the point where Jonathan protected David, even speaking on David's behalf to his father, trying to make sure that he did not kill him. We also talked about the four friends that Yeshua saw their faith, and healed the paralytic. He saw the friends' faith. Then we talked about some of the negative examples. Judas, obviously, being the biggest one, right? Over 30 pieces of silver. A warning against modern betrayal of the Torah. Warning against any friend or relative who entices you to serve other Elohims, other gods. Said if anyone pulls you away, if a friend, a brother, a father, whoever, they try to pull you away and get you to get with other gods, then there's a special way that you deal with them. And so as we now are moving on to the next piece, we go from servant to friend, now to our Father, Av. Yah is our Father, Av. All right, so Av is H1. So it's actually in the concordance, it's the first word. And so it's two letters, Av, Aleph, and Beit. And the Aleph is the head or the strength or the leader. And Beit is the house. So he is the leader or the strength, the head of the house. The father is the leader, the head, the strength of the house. And there is then the son or the child. The son or the child. And that is H1121. Bain. And Bain is son or child. Beit being house again. So we just touched on that, right? And remember, it was Aleph Beit. And here is Beit Nun. And so starting with the house, the child is the seed that comes from the house. So the child is the seed that comes from the house. If you were to put these side by side, you go from right to left. And the bait will be facing this way with the opening on this side, and the seed is on the other side, on the left side. The seed is coming from the house, seed or life. And so this is derived from that bait and that noon. Bait, again, meaning house, noon being seed. But I want to take a look at something else here. So that's not a root word. The root word is Banah. Banah, and that is 1129. That is 1129. 1121 was the other, but 1129, Bain versus Banah. And Banah means to build or to establish. And so there is a building and an establishment that happens when the house has children, right? That's how we continue. What was the curse in the garden. Like, there were a few, but what was the curse? In the day that man, death. In the day that man sinned, he will surely die. Right? And so while there were a lot of things, but death was the ultimate punishment, right? And so what is death but a stoppage of time? For that individual, it stops their time. That individual, not everybody's time, because everybody else is going on. But that person, their time is limited based on you were here 70 years, you were here 10 years, you were here however long it was, 92 years. We saw someone as not, my grandmother is 92 this year. I think she turned 93 this year. Or she turned 92 this year. I can't remember if this is 92 or 93. It's one of the two. But I think 92. I think this is 92. But it's like, wow, that is a blessing, 92 years. How long has the world been around? How long have we been doing this thing? It's not a long time in the grand scheme. And so children is literally how we continue, is how life continues, as we have children. And those children carry something forward generationally. And when a house is built, there is an idea that this child will carry forward from the father. That's why it's written, and the mother. It's written in our literal DNA. Kids don't just make up stuff and look whatever kind of way and do whatever. It is passed down. It is passed down through the DNA. And so let's now look at good qualities. Good qualities. And this is of a father. Qualities of the Father. Yahweh provides essential elements for our spiritual growth. And through that, there is what a father and what our Father has as qualities. A good father: provision, protection, instruction, guidance, correction, direction, love, wisdom, vision, legacy, and inheritance. An inheritance. So a good father will make sure that he is providing for his children, protecting his children, instructing his house, guiding his house. All of these things, right? Children need to be corrected and directed. They also need to be loved. We also need to share with them wisdom. I like to say now we are in the stage of advisors. We're grown. That's what we are entering into. We're like parental advisors now. So the conversations are different. It's not even wash them dishes. Now is, Dad, what should I say in this interview? You know what I'm saying? We are advisors. The role changes. But the guidance, that's what we are here for. And so let's then look at good qualities of the child. Good qualities of a good child. So first is obedience. Need to be obedient. A child needs to be respectful. A child needs to be responsible. Moldable. Moldable is so important because if we let children do whatever they want to do at 3 and 4 and 7 and 10 and 12 years old, we're going to have a mess. We're going to have a mess, right? Yeah, you ever turn the house over to a kid for a day? Good googly moogly. And whatever they say go, boy, you let that 3-year-old run your house if you want to. And so they have to be moldable because we have to help them understand the world around them. Responsive. So not just responsible, but responsive, as in, this is what I thought was right, but I got to make some changes. I got to respond to what's happening and the instruction that I'm being given, responsive. And then a good child is the recipient of the inheritance, and the hope of the father is that that child is their succession, that they will carry forward, that we don't restart every single generation, but that we have given our children a place to start from. My father always said, I want you to be better than me. He always said, "Now you go from here. This is where I've got." He would tell me that in everything. But he's like, I want you to be better. And so that's the whole thing. We have to move forward. All right, so we're going to hit some scriptures here. And, yeah, so if anybody was like, oh, this guy just talks. He don't go through no scriptures. Oh, they coming. They coming. All right, so I'm going to try to get through these quickly so we can make sure that we hit everything. I want to get through this entire teaching today. That way, because we've got 2 more parts to this. 2 more parts. All right, so the first scripture we're going to hit, and this is what we're talking about, becoming sons. Becoming sons. Remember, relationship is growing. It's growing. All right, so let's go to first start at Matthew chapter 18. Matthew chapter 18, verses 1 through 4. Matthew chapter 18, verses 1 through 4. And it reads, "At that time the taught ones came to Yeshua, saying, Who then is greatest in the reign of the heavens? And Yeshua called a little child to him, set him in their midst, and said, Truly, I say to you, unless you turn and become as little children, you shall by no means enter into the reign of the heavens. Whoever then humbles himself as this little child is the greatest in the reign of the heavens." Whoever humbles himself is the greatest in the reign of the heavens. Why? Because a child, what is the expectation of the child? To be obedient, to be moldable, to submit to the will of the Father. That is what he is letting us know. As my disciples, you are to submit as a child. That will make you the greatest. And so let's now go to Romans chapter 8. Romans chapter 8, we're going to look at verses 14 through 7. Romans chapter 8, verses 14 through 7. And remember, right here, we're talking about becoming sons. Becoming sons. And here's the important thing about this piece here in becoming sons. You can be a son and not act like one and get kicked out the house. Just like you cannot be a son and you can behave like one and be received into the house. You can be received into the house. And so we want to look at becoming sons from the perspective of, if I am a son, I need to act like it. But not being a son is not an excuse. And so there's a lot of people that's going crazy over whether, these people are true Israelites, these people are the real Hebrews. Listen, we're going to get to that scripture just a little later, but I'll go ahead and give you this one little piece. Who is my mother? Who is my brother? Those doing the will of the Father. And so there's something in the obedience that you become a son. And if you are a son, it is not an excuse. That's the problem with us. The problem is we come into the understanding of we the people, and next thing you know, we out here running around just telling everybody we the people, 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 we the people. Them people ain't really people, we the people. But are you walking like a son? Are you obedient to the Father? Are you a wayward child? I ain't going to get ahead of myself because that's a little later. All right, let's go ahead and read Romans chapter 8, verse 14 through 17. And it reads, "For as many as are led by the Spirit of Elohim." I'm going to say that again. For as many, 4 times. For as many 5 times. For as many 6 times. For as many 7 times. They say, then it's a habit. For as many are led by the Spirit of Elohim, these are sons of Elohim. For you did not receive the spirit of bondage again to fear, but you received the spirit of adoption, by whom we cry out, Abba, Father. The Spirit himself bears witness with our spirit that we are children of Elohim. And if children, also heirs, truly heirs of Elohim. Heirs receive an inheritance, right? And co-heirs with Mashiach, if indeed we do what? Suffer with him, in order that we also be exalted together. Touched on friend, because we're exalted together. We suffer together, right? But this elevation comes when we are led by the Spirit of Elohim. When we're led by the Spirit of Elohim, then we now can say, Abba, Father. Let's go to Ephesians chapter 1. Ephesians chapter 1. And we're going to read a few verses here. Verse 5 down to 11. This is one of those classic Shaul run-on sentences. So I kind of starting in the middle of the sentence and ending in the middle of the sentence, but the sentence is like 20 verses. So let's just say Shaul would have had a rough time in my English teacher's class. Because she hated run-on sentences. Senior year. I don't know why I still remember that lady, Miss Johnson. That's crazy. I don't even know how long ago that was. All right, here we go. Ephesians chapter 1, verse 5 through 11. And it says, having previously ordained us to adoption as sons through Yeshua Messiah to himself, according to the good pleasure of his desire, to the praise of the esteem of his favor, with which he favored us in the beloved, in whom we have redemption through his blood. So redemption is servant, right? You're redeemed. You now owe something. The forgiveness of trespasses, according to the riches of his favor, which he has lavished on us in all wisdom and insight, having made known to us the secret of his desire. Remember, a servant knows not what the master does, but I've called you friend and I've revealed to you, right? And so that's now going from the servant happened earlier in this verse. Now the friend is happening. We'll keep reading. And we're now in verse 9. So having made known to us the secret of his desire, according to his good pleasure, which he purposed in him. Verse 10. To administer at the completion of time, to gather together in one all in Messiah, both which are in the heavens and which are on the earth, in him, in whom also we did obtain an inheritance. Who gets the inheritance? Does a friend get an inheritance? A son, a ben gets an inheritance. We did obtain an inheritance, being previously ordained according to the purpose of him, working all matters according to the counsel of his desire. So right there, we hit all of those stages where we are thus far. And so let's now go to John chapter 3. John chapter 3. Yes. Yes, sir. John chapter 3. And we're going to read from verse 3 to verse 6. And this is Nicodemus coming to Mashiach to ask of him and to speak with him. And I brought a little bit of this out during Unleavened Bread. But we're going to read this verse, these few verses here. Again, John chapter 3, verses 3 through 6. And it reads, Yeshua answered and said to him, Truly, truly, I say to you, unless one is born from above, he is unable to see the reign of Elohim. Born from above. All right. And then Nicodemus, verse 4, said to him, How is a man able to be born when he is old? That's the question. How can a man be born when he is old? Is he able to enter into the mother's womb a second time and be born? Yeshua answered, Truly, truly, I say to you, unless one is born of water and the Spirit, he is unable to enter into the reign of Elohim. That which has been born of the flesh is flesh. So that's the water part. Being born of flesh is flesh, like actually what Nicodemus brought up, which is coming from your mother's womb. But then it says, and that which has been born of the Spirit is spirit. That which is born of the Spirit is spirit. It's the next step of this process. Why? Because when you are what's the first thing we waiting? We in waiting right now with the Thomas family, because y'all know what we all want to know, right? What do we all want to know? Is it a boy or a girl? And so when a child is born, they're automatically a child, right? Like automatic, they're a child. So what he's saying is we have to have this mindset, just like we already went through in the earlier reading in Matthew, where he says, you must come as a child. So there is a rebirthing and an understanding that you are to return to literally thinking as an infant, as a child, completely dependent upon who? Your Father. Because, y'all, we come with baggage. We come with stuff. We come with experiences. We come with information. Y'all, you ever meet a 10-year-old and it's like they really, truly, I know by the time 13, they know everything. But like somewhere around 9 or 10, they're like, what is wrong with mommy and daddy? Them people is crazy. Because they know everything at that age. They got it all figured out. And they looking at us like we are bonkers. Like, I don't know what planet y'all dropped off on, but I already know jumping off this ledge is going to work. It's going to be fun. I don't know what you talking about getting hurt. What that got to do with anything? You know, I already know eating this ice cream and this cake and these cookies and these Ritz crackers and these pretzels and all of that back to back is not going to result in no stomach ache. It's going to result in me being happy. So it's like they already got, that's how we are. And so Yah is saying to us, I need you to understand you are a child. And when we accept that role, what can we then do? We can then see him as all that we need, our provider, our protector, the source of our direction and instruction, all of the things that we just went through. That's what we then would rely upon him for when we are as a child. And so this being born again is what he's explaining to Nicodemus. You have to be born of the Spirit. Understand that everything you knew. And then he challenged what he knew. He was like, you're a teacher of Israel. You don't know this? And Nicodemus was like, how much? I ain't never heard that word. That somebody's supposed to like go back in their mother's womb and be born again? But I don't think that was the point. Messiah is proving something and showing you're a child that needs a father. You're a child that needs the guidance. You're a child that needs the protection. And when we recognize that, then, now, we're not just born of water, but we're born of spirit. And so let's go to Matthew chapter 12. Matthew chapter 12. Again, becoming sons. And in Matthew chapter 12, it's going to help us understand that even a little bit more. Becoming sons. And we're going to start at verse 48 and read down. And it reads, "But he answering said to the one who spoke to him, 'Who is my mother and who are my brothers?' And having stretched out his hand toward the taught ones, he said, 'See, my mother and my brothers. For whoever does the desire of my Father, who is in the heavens, is my brother and sister and mother.'" Whoever does the desire, the will of the Father. This is my brethren. So if this is my brethren, that makes us children of a Father. That's the reason. People are trying to figure out, well, why Mashiach always refer to Elohim as Father? Or why does he speak in this way? And all of this is about him teaching us. It's for us. It ain't for him. It's for us. He calls him Father for us so that we can understand how to interact with him. So we can, this was our example. This was our example. And so let's look at the other side of the coin. Let's look at the other side of the coin. Becoming non-sons. Usually we become non-sons because we are buying into nonsense. And so we have Deuteronomy. We're going to go to Deuteronomy. I want to look at this concept. We're first going to hit this quick example of non-sons, or sons becoming non-sons. And this is Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 18. So I'll start reading at 18 and we'll stop at 21. And it says, "When a man has a wayward and rebellious son," was it a son? Yes. But this son was wayward and rebellious. Was that on the list of good qualities of a good son? No. Wayward wasn't there, and rebellious wasn't there, and it ain't because I just forgot. They ain't there because those are not qualities of a good son. Sons should not be wayward and rebellious. All right, continuing. "Who is not listening to the voice of his father?" Oh. "Or the voice of his mother?" Oh. "And who, when they have disciplined him, does not listen to them." This is all of the stuff that is like, you got to be obedient. No, you got to listen. No, you got to. None of the stuff is on there. Verse 19 says, "Then his father and his mother shall take hold of him and bring him out to the elders of the city, to the gate of the city, and shall say to the elders of this city, 'This son of ours is wayward and rebellious. He is not listening to our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard.' Then all the men of his city shall stone him to death with stones. Thus you shall purge," what's the point? "To purge the evil from your midst. And let all Israel hear and fear." Let all Israel hear and fear. Why? Because he's trying to make this an example so that sons don't become, this is how you become a non-son. This is how your time is cut short. And y'all, it ain't always in the fact that one is put to death. But what about the cutting off? Cutting off doesn't just come in the form of dying. So in looking at this word, the word that comes up a lot when you see cut off in Hebrew is karat. Karat. And what's very interesting about this word is the fact that it's one of its definitions is being beheaded. So what's the Father? The head. And so when being cut off, it's when the body separated from the head, from the leader. And so it's important for us to understand it. And let's look at, I wanted to look at, there was something else in these letters that I wanted to make sure we looked at as well. And so if we look at these letters, is this the right one? No, that's not the right one. You look at these letters, there we go. And when we look at the cough, the first one, that is open or crowning. Opening or crowning. And then the next letter is Resh. And Resh is head. Resh is the head. And then the last letter, is the Tav, which is the sign or the covenant or truth. So it starts with what? An opening. The Kaf is the first letter, and it starts with opening. And so in that exact, what is the Father there to do? The Father's there to cover us. And so if there's an opening, there's a cutting off. When we walk away from under the covering, y'all ever, what happens? Listen, anybody ever been to Florida in the summertime when it rains like crazy and then it just stops out of nowhere? Like literally would be pouring down and then like 5 minutes of rain and then stop raining and the ground is so like hot and the sun is shining so much that the ground dries up almost immediately. Like you can't even tell it rained. Like, and it was like 10 minutes ago. It was like pouring down. But what happens if you was under an awning and then you walk out in the rain? You're going to get wet, right? It's not a trick question. You're about to get soaked. What's the difference between you and the person that's under the awning? The covenant. The covering. And so we leave ourselves beheaded when we separate from the covering of the Most High. We leave ourselves beheaded. Let's now take a look at some good father-son relationships. And I'm going to talk through these. We're not going to go through all of the scriptures. We're just going to talk to them, okay? I know y'all are Talmudim. If you have not read these, then I would encourage you to look up some of these stories. But Abraham and Yitzhak. Abraham and Yitzhak, we know what happened there, where Yitzhak was going to be sacrificed upon the command of the Most High to Abraham. Take your son and offer him. But here's one of the pieces that's missing from the story that arrives in the book of Jasher. Couple of things to bring out. Number one, very important piece, is he was not a little boy being held by his hand and walked up the mountain unknowingly what was about to happen. All right? He didn't know to a point, but when you're 37, you got enough brains to put stuff together. And this is why he said, well, where's the, oh. And why did he realize what was going to happen? What it was, he was the offering. So there's a couple of things. Number one, the book of Joshua talks about him having a conversation with his brother where he said, hey, if Yahweh required my life of me, I would lay it down. And he's like, well, Hasatan hears that word, takes it back to Elohim. Hey, accuser of the brethren. Abraham ain't praised you since, he ain't gave you no offering since you gave him that boy over there. He ain't did nothing. All he wanted was him. He ain't really want you. He just wanted the son. He was like, man, offer, see if he'll give him. He give him till you make an offering. So Yahweh was never going to have him sacrifice his son, but he was proven to Hasatan just like he did with Job. He proved to him that this is my servant and he will be obedient to me. But it wasn't just about Abraham. We look at that with Abraham, but look at it from Isaac's perspective. He's a full-grown man. First step is he's 37. His dad is like 137. If they had to go at it, I'm putting my money on the 37-year-old. So I'm sure if he wanted to be like, Pops, I ain't doing that. Make me. Ain't nobody here but me and you. By the time they got to a certain point, he like, you about to be the offering. But he did not do that. The book of Joshua talks about it in this way, and it says that he said to his father, I willingly lay down. And he said, as a matter of fact, Father, tie me tighter so that I don't move and thus spoil the sacrifice. So looking at it as a son, this is a son to his father who says, I will be obedient to you unto death. It's not just about Abraham willing to give his son, but it's also about a son being obedient to a father willing to give his very life. And so let's take a look here at a bad father-son relationship. I put a couple of these up. David and Absalom. Now, the crazy thing about Absalom, anybody recognize the first two letters of Absalom's name? Didn't we just say what Ab means? Father. And anybody recognize the last part of his name? Shalom. Shalom. So here he is. Here he is. Father. Shalom. But he caused his father no shalom. He was so mad at David that he was willing to kill his father. His father. And he was mad. Now, did he have a reason? Yes. Where does it begin? With the raping of his sister. And he felt like his father didn't do enough concerning his son, his other son. And Absalom was like, I'll take care of it. You ain't about to do this to my sister. And as a matter of fact, old man, you get some too. This is Absalom's approach. So this was not such a great father-son relationship. Eli and his two sons, Hophni and Phinehas. What was the issue with them? What was the issue with them? Well, Eli was a high priest. And these two sons are bringing and they in the back wheeling and dealing. This is what they doing. They like, oh, you got a good lamb. You got a perfect lamb. All right, bring that over here. I'm going to sit that over there. You got a blemish joint. Yeah, I'll sacrifice that. You perfect joint, right? Ooh, put that, oh, this one look real good. Put that goat right there. You mine. And next thing you know, they're bringing what is called strange fire because they are making deals and offering the animals that are blemished in the place of the animals that are being brought that are unblemished. Their job was to help to make sure that the process of the sacrificial system was held up. But here they are doing and taking advantage of the situation and shaming their father and shaming their Elohim. And so Eli has no generations. Because he says, these two sons, I will cut off and blot out their name. And they will have no heirs. They will have no children. So now you, as the father, where did the father mess up? Where did Eli mess up? Eli, the question is, did Eli do as Abraham did? Did he teach his sons? Did he do his job in teaching and imparting in them? You can have a wayward child, but good gracious, two? His only two sons. I don't know this for a fact, but I'm willing to guess that Eli's parental skills wasn't the greatest because the fruit is known. The tree is known by the fruit that it bears. And Eli himself was a righteous man, but he didn't teach his children. And so that was very, very important. And so again, as we look back, and I'm closing out, as we look back as to what this process is, we go from being a servant, bought with a price. We can't afford the price of sin. So we have a master that purchased us and now allowed us to live and to be his servant. And we as servants have found ourselves as a faithful servant. You become his friend, the friend of the master. And he says, I no longer call you servant, but I call you friend. And I tell you now the secrets. Now I tell you the intimate details. Now you don't just get instruction, but you get the wisdom behind what it is we're building together, right? Because we strive together as friends. We conquer together as friends. But then he takes it to the next level and he says, you are not just friends, but I give you power and authority to become sons. And as you now take being a servant to the next level of being a friend, to the next level of being a son, then you now have to understand this next role. And you as the son, he is the father. And so I'm going to go back through that one good time, and we are done. You can expect this from Yah. He's going to provide. He's going to protect. He will give you instructions. The instructions are there. He will give you guidance. He will correct you. He puts within us and gives us the Ruach to speak and witness against us when we are doing something outside of what he said. Correction. Direction. He will let you know where to go. He will love you. He will give you wisdom. He always has a vision for us. He provides legacy and an inheritance. But we've got to make sure we are a good child. Be obedient to our Father. Be respectful to our Father. Show and prove to him that you are responsible. He gives us gifts, right? Don't bury the gift. Be responsible with what he has given us, what he puts into our hands. Be responsible with it. Be moldable by him and his voice and his word. And when you hear his word, do not harden your heart, but be responsive to his word. Be responsive to his word. And know this, that we are his succession. He says, greater works will you do. We are the people that's doing and supposed to be operating in the greater works of the teaching and the leading and the pushing forward his truths, his ways, his commands, his instructions, his direction for his people. And don't forget that just because you're a son don't mean you can't become a non-son. And he has every right to kick us out of the house if we're not obedient. And we cannot allow ourselves or anybody else to use the excuse of, well, I'm not a son. If that's your belief or if that's really your reality, Understand, if you desire a relationship with the Most High, with the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that you must attach. And he's given you the opportunity to receive an adoption. And when you receive that adoption, he says you now have been given power to say and to cry out what? Abba. To say Father. Because who says Father? A child. So we become children. So this is our responsibility. This is our calling. And with that, we will close on out for this teaching. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Praise God.